Now there is no hiding the fact that this monitor behind me here is just an absolute unit, and on my desk it does look a little bit garish. Now I do know I've got it in front of my two daily drivers, but even still, if they were not there, I'm not sure it would suit my space. It's an OLED panel which makes super contrasty games like Ori and the Will of the Wisps just look absolutely stunning. It has tiny bezels and a really nice stand made from recycled materials, and it's white across the back to help with that ambient glow reflection it has, although I wouldn't really rate the ambient glow really. It's nowhere near as bright as those LED strips from Philips or Govee that react to your screen now. It's called the Philips Evnia 42M2N8900, a bit of a mouthful, that model number, and probably won't be said again in this video, but let's check it out. So the Philips Evnia screen here is a 42-inch 4K OLED panel that can pack a punch when it comes to gaming performance. Not only do you get the added benefits OLED gives when it comes to motion clarity and blurring and also color reproduction, but you've got a refresh rate of 138 Hz. Philips has also treated users to full bandwidth HDMI 2.1, so you console gamers out there can fully experience this screen at 120 Hz. And what more, you can actually lock the HDMI ports individually to 120 Hz as well. Now, speaking of ports around the back, you've also got your DisplayPort 1.4, a USB hub with various USB speeds on there, and also a power input which requires a kettle plug. The screen itself has a matte finish with some kind of anti-glare film across the front, which works quite nicely and did help with the glare from my window somewhat. However, to get the most out of this monitor, get as much light out of the room as possible, just so those colors pop even more. The screen can also produce an HDR image as it's compatible with HDR10. However, there is no display HDR certification with this panel, which is a little strange that they have not been granted a certification giving the style of monitor that this is. However, it is still good to know it has HDR compatibility and a maximum brightness of 480 nits in HDR, though it does fall to around 180 nits in SD mode. You've also got your adaptive sync on your refresh rate, which does run from 48 to 138 Hz, which actually is probably why this monitor's max refresh rate is 138 Hz and not 144, though there is no G-Sync here. You've got FreeSync Premium, and if you're running your AMD graphics cards, you've got that. Unfortunately, I do have a 4070 Ti in my main rig, and it worked absolutely fine for me, so adaptive sync here is good enough, I would say, and didn't really feel like I was missing out due to not having the G-Sync included. There is no real motion reduction technology in play here either, making it somewhat a basic OLED panel, especially for gaming, and to be honest with you, aimed at the more casual gamer as opposed to esports enthusiasts, but it still did a decent job at controlling motion, and I didn't notice any kind of inverse ghosting when running through a UFO test, though there is still some standard ghosting present. It has a VESA Clear MR 8000 certification, which is a method in which VESA measure motion clarity in a panel, and the 8000 level is roughly mid-table. So some could say it's not really the best, but it's certainly not the worst by far. Now, however, saying this, if you're the type of gamer who hits the esports titles pretty heavily, then this might not be the monitor for you. It's definitely more suited towards a more casual single player title gamer and maybe some very light multiplayer, especially as well as this thing is just so damn large on a desk. Gaming on this screen, however, is just such a superb experience. The colors, being an OLED panel, just absolutely pop, and playing through some Black Myth Wukong looked just breathtaking. The blacks are super inky and super smooth enough to pick out any details in combat, and I also did try some Vermintide 2 as well, because that game is notoriously dark, and again the glow from lights and fire against the inky blacks just looked stunning. Inside of the Evnia's game mode menu, there is something called a dynamic dark boost, which essentially brightens dark areas inside of games. I did stick this on level 1 just to give them a bit of a lift, and of course I had to try some Overwatch 2, didn't I? Because that's probably my favorite game at the moment, but I must say that one of this panel's greatest strengths is probably its greatest weakness when it comes to competitive gaming like Overwatch 2, and that is its size. Tracking enemies zooming from left to right like an annoying Lucio, for example, did become quite tough at 42 inches, and I would have much preferred a smaller monitor for this. It did though look pretty smooth, and again the colors did really pop, especially from the energy weapons within the game. Do be warned though, there is a setting to help mitigate burn-in which includes pixel orbiting and a pixel refresh every 4 hours. There is also a brightness limiter on the panel depending on what's being used, and if you're on a web browser, for example, all day, like if you're working on it, this can really help with aiding the static parts of the browser from damaging the screen. Now, of course, you do have a warranty on the monitor with the screen, but who wants to faff around with that and getting that repaired when there are settings here to help mitigate that burn-in the first place? Now, as I've mentioned the menu already, everything is controlled with a small joystick on the bottom rear of the monitor, though its position is just really awkward and to get to if you're looking straight on. It does require a bit of a stretch to hit functions. Also, don't expect much from the OSD anyway, as there's only a few settings for picture quality, including some presets and also some minor game settings. Nothing that really screams esports or gaming really. Now, I did stick to the standard picture profile, turned the white balance to 6500K and turned on the sRGB mode, but unfortunately this is where the panel fell down for me somewhat compared to other reviews. And yes, I will admit I did cheat somewhat and check out how others have fared with this panel because I was shocked at my findings. Now, shout out to Totally Dubbed, by the way, who I spoke to on Twitter to find out their exact monitor settings for this panel to see if I could get my color accuracy down to their level. Anyway, let's talk about the stats that I got. On a side note, I have sent all of my findings to Philips so their technical team can have a look at that just to see if it is my panel here that is causing issues. So, looking at my gamuts after a calibration, I did manage to get 100% of the sRGB color gamut, but it did fall down on Adobe RGB, coming in at 89%. P3 fared better at 95% and NTSC came in at 87%, so somewhat varied there. Brightness and contrast were superb, with SD mode at 100% brightness coming in at 182.6 nits of brightness with a contrast ratio of 4,270:1, which was marvelous to see, and a white point of 6,400. Color uniformity at 100% brightness saw some hotspot issues all the way down the left hand side, while at 50% brightness things did look a lot more even across the panel, and luminance uniformity at 100% brightness was absolutely fine, no issues there. Now, this is where things did get a little bit strange for me because color accuracy, according to my Data Color Spider Elite, was pretty off. And this is where I cheated a bit and checked out other reviews on YouTube because I saw people were getting a Delta E average of around 1.4. Now, my Delta E average, the best I could get it down to was around 6.8. Okay, so let me explain why, and bear with me a bit here. My first test, I ran a pre-calibration in standard picture mode with sRGB off. It gave me a Delta E average of 7.26. My second test, I ran post-calibration, again with sRGB off, gave me an average of 6.23, so getting better there. However, my third test with sRGB on, my white balance at 6500K, and at 50% brightness this time, gave me an average score of 8.1. So, who knows if I've been just super unlucky with the panel lottery here. My fourth test, because I thought at this point, what the hell, let's run another test. I ran in game 1, image mode, and it gave me a color accuracy of 11.43. Go figure. Now, I used my Data Color Spider on my MSI panels here and no problems at all. So I know I haven't got broken equipment. I just don't know why these Philips Evnia monitors, which this has been the second I've tested now, give me such an issue with measuring color accuracy. But I thought I'd report on my findings just to stay absolutely transparent with the monitor and my personal experience. But even with the downfall with the color accuracy here, I still had a fantastic time with this monitor and found my single player games really immersive and really gave me a bit of a fresh perspective on how good some of them can actually look on an OLED panel. Looking at you, Ori and the Will-o'-the-Wisps. Now, the biggest drawback for me here, unfortunately, being a desk monitor, is its size. Yes, it's fantastic playing an OLED panel this big, but it is a big downfall for me and Overwatch 2 and competitive gaming and tracking enemies. Give me my 27-inch screen back any day for that. But still, Philips have done a fantastic job here for sure, and Googling the model number had given me a range of prices from around £770 on the likes of eBay all the way up to just over £1,000. So please do your research if you are thinking of buying one, because prices can vary hugely. It's what I would really call an entry-level OLED panel, but I suppose even entry level can still be superb. Thank you very much for checking out my video review of the Philips Evnia long model number. I don't know. I usually sign off with a model number, but it's far too long in this case. I can't even remember it. 42M2N8900, something like that. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, hit the like button, subscribe to keep up with our latest tech and gaming videos, and also let us know in the comments down below, would you go for one of these monitors, something this size on your desk anyway, or do you have the space for something this size? Let us know in the comments down below. As I say, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.